Welcome everybody to this presentation where I'm going to be going through a few different pre-departure tips for students before they head to the U.S. In this presentation, the information within this presentation kind of comes from my own personal background as an academic advisor at Ohio University. So with that in mind, we're going to get going, and I'm going to try and provide you with a little bit of insight that will help inform your travels to the United States. So the premise of this presentation is basically that you should expect differences. And some of the differences that I found that have been really difficult for international students to work around are listed on this page. Student identification card, registering for classes, obtaining textbooks, trying to navigate a course syllabus, navigating the academic landscape of their particular university, and then a couple more practical things, packing, and then essentials once you get to the United States. So that's going to be the kind of order of operations for this discussion today. So the first thing that I'm going to talk about is the student identification card. While you probably have had a similar card during your studies, wherever you happen to be from, in the U.S., the student identification card is very important. It should be obtained soon after your arrival. It'll either be given to you or you will have to seek it out, but you should do your best to get it soon after you arrive. And it should be treated the same way that you would treat your national identity card or your driver's license or any very important document. The reason why this is important is really twofold. First of all, it proves that you are a student at the university. And secondly, it allows access to facilities both on and off campus. And here is a list of things that the student identification card can be used for. And this is a non-exhaustive list. There are many other possibilities, but this is just a general rendering. Student discounts, movie theaters offer these, restaurants. You'll want to show your card for this type of thing. The university library, you will need your card, sometimes to even enter the library, but definitely to check out books and to reserve rooms. To access university computers, university Wi-Fi, you will need your student identification. As I alluded to earlier, it acts as official identification on campus. If you run into a campus police officer, you can show them your student identification card. A lot of times you will need your identification card to enter into buildings. There will be a magnetic swipe to enter into a building. You won't be able to get in without your card. Campus events like football games and concerts, paying for meals, printing. This is, as you can see, a very important card. The next thing that I'm going to talk a little bit about is registration. So basically in the US, in order to take part in a class, you must register for that class. And this is a process that's completed either online or with the help of your advisor, depending on your particular university. So in terms of process, the way to register generally will be to consult with your plan of study, speak with your advisor, try and find classes that fit both what you want to study and what your advisor will approve, and log on to the school's registration system and indicate the classes you would like to take. Most universities in the US have an online registration system. The ones that do not, the process will be very similar, but you will be doing paper-based work. I will say that for most international students who are coming to the US, for your first semester at least, you will probably, I would say this is 90% the case, be registered either already or at orientation with your particular department or with the college in general. So this probably isn't something that you're going to have to deal with immediately, although it might be, so keep it in mind. So another problem that, and this is something that American students deal with also, but international students are especially interested in this, is textbooks. So in the US, textbooks are very expensive. Depending on the field of study and the specific classes you're taking, you will probably spend at least $500 a semester on textbooks, and sometimes over $1,000, depending on what you'll be doing. Now, it's also important to purchase your textbooks as soon as possible, and this is pretty easy to do because instructors will generally post this online. Now, this is very important because in the last few years, there've begun to be a lot of pre-class assignments. A lot of your classes will be offered, will have a Blackboard system to go along with the class on the internet, and there might be an assignment due on the first day of class, and you will need your books to do that. So I'm going to go through, in the next slide, a fairly detailed account of the different ways to get your textbooks. Okay, so this is going to be broken down into two separate areas: when to buy your books and how to buy your books. So in terms of when to buy your books, you can either buy them before classes start or after classes start. If you buy them before classes start, you benefit because you'll be ready for any pre-class assignment and you'll be able to read ahead. If you wait to buy the books till after classes start, you won't have this ability. In fact, you may have even missed a pre-class assignment. Now, the issue is, if you buy the books before classes start, there could be a change. So you need to make sure that you're able to return the books. If you buy the books after classes start, one of the major disadvantages is that your books might sell out. It might be more difficult to find them. There might be lines at the bookstore. So those are just a couple of things to think about. I obviously recommend trying to purchase your books before classes start. I don't really see any major negative with doing that. Now, where to buy your books? This gets a little trickier. Most colleges and universities in the US will try to funnel you into the campus bookstore to purchase your books. And this can be a good idea. The campus bookstore has a good selection. They'll have new books and used books, and you'll be able to get them quickly. You'll have them in your hand within 10 minutes. The negative with this is that campus bookstores are very expensive. It's possible that you could buy your books on the internet and save 50 to 75% of the total cost. The only real disadvantage with this is sometimes it might be a little difficult to figure out exactly if you're getting the exact correct edition of a book. So if you're buying your books or even renting your books online, which has become more and more possible over the last few years, you just need to pay extra diligence and make sure that you're getting the correct book. And that if there's a change in the types of books needed for a class, that the return policies will allow you to make an easy return. Now, I am not recommending any specific website to do this, but websites like Amazon.com and Half.com usually have good return policies and will have a wide selection of textbooks. And this is the way that most American students buy their books. So my advice, as I alluded to in the last slide, if you purchase or rent your textbooks online prior to the start of classes, you will get the best prices. And unlike in Europe, in the United States, it is very simple to return whatever you don't want for a full refund within a 30 to 60 day period. So you shouldn't have any trepidation. You should feel completely satisfied buying your books online, and you should know that this will work out well for you. Moving on to another interesting area of the U.S. education system is the syllabus. So what this is really, unofficially, is a contract between the instructor and the students, which kind of outlines the direction of how a course is going to go. And this is very important because this absolutely acts as a contract. If something is not in the syllabus, it generally cannot be required of the professor or of the students. So if the syllabus says that there's 3 assignments, there will be 3 assignments. There will not be 4. The only way that the professor could add an assignment is if the entire class agrees. So it's very, very important for you to get your syllabi, read them, understand them, and follow them throughout the course of the semester. Even if the professor doesn't stand in front of the class and say, tomorrow your paper is due. If the syllabus says your paper is due, then your paper is probably going to be due. So what does the syllabus include? What does this contract cover? Just about everything, really. We're talking about things like the course title and the meeting times of the course, the instructor's name and contact information, policies regarding academic integrity and equity, attendance policies, other expectations, such as cell phone usage, different topics covered and the types of textbooks you might need, assignments, the grading policy, which we'll talk about a little bit later, course objectives, test dates. The syllabus covers everything that happens within a course. So I know that these examples are a little small, but these are 2 examples of kind of what the first couple pages of a syllabus might look like. Now, I've provided in the web links area, numbers 1 and 2, examples of syllabi. Now, both of these web links, you'll be able to go into a database and search for syllabi. So if you're an electrical engineering student, you would type that in and you could find an electrical engineering syllabus. The same thing for education, law, medicine, etc. So take a look at these different syllabi and familiarize yourself with the format, because this is going to be like your ultimate learning contract while you're in the United States. Very important to understand this stuff. Okay, so we've gotten you to the point where you're registered, where you understand how to use the syllabus. Now we actually have to start thinking about what it's going to be like to go to class in the United States. And there's a few things we're going to look at here. We're going to look at academic rigor, the in-class atmosphere, the types of facilities that are available to facilitate studying, the difference in attendance policies between the United States and international locations, grading, and decorum. And I'll explain that a little bit more once I get to it. Okay, so academic rigor. Whatever your idea about the U.S. education system is, it's been my experience that the best way for you to plan for a successful beginning to your time in the U.S. is to plan for your studies to be the most difficult than they've ever been. Now, even if this isn't the case, even if you've had much more difficult studies in other places, if you have that mindset, the probability of success is much greater. Now, in the U.S., your classes will only meet 1, 2, or 3 times per week. Generally 2 to 3, sometimes once. One of the peculiarities in this is that significant reading is often expected between class meetings. So it wouldn't be strange to have a class meeting and then to have 200 or 300 pages of reading due before the next meeting. Now you might think to yourself, why should I do this reading? We'll talk about it a little later, but the reason is because the professor will expect you to do it, and because he will question you in class about this reading. So this is, even though you're not turning in the reading for a grade, you definitely need to make sure that you're doing it. You also might find that you have more papers, more quizzes, and more exams than you may be used to. Generally, I advise my students, as a rule of thumb, that for every hour of class, that they should probably be spending somewhere between 1 and 2 hours outside of class doing course-related activities. So if you break that down, if you have a 12 credit hour schedule, you're talking about 12 to 24 hours outside of class to prepare. So in-class atmosphere, as I just stated, in the American university environment, you will do a lot of reading, and the professor will question you about that reading. And basically what this means is that class sessions are going to be very interactive. It's not going to be just the professor questioning you. It's going to be more of a discussion. The professor will ask a question, you will answer, another student might ask a question, and it's a very interactive experience. You may find that the instructor will give a short lecture. That's very normal. But you will definitely be expected to answer questions in front of the class and challenge what both the instructor and other students say. It's not enough to listen to a professor and just repeat what he said. The professor wants to know that you're thinking critically and engaging with material. And in order to better exemplify this, I have placed in the web links area 2 examples. One of these examples, number 3, is from a movie, an American movie called The Paper Chase. And it's kind of particular to the law school experience, but it will give you a really good idea of the type of back and forth that occurs in an American classroom. The second example, number 4, is a real live example from an American classroom. And you should definitely take a look at both of these because it'll give you a good idea of what you'll be experiencing in the near future. So just a little bit about studying. I'm sure most of you have study techniques that work, and you certainly shouldn't try and change those. In the U.S., as you know, anywhere, it's important to have a quiet place to study. And libraries at U.S. universities can oftentimes be more of a social center than a place to study. So my advice, and from quite a bit of experience, I've gained this, is that you need to find a quiet place, whether that be at home or somewhere in the library. That's going to be the key for you. Now, I've added a picture on this slide of study carrels, and a lot of U.S. universities will rent for a very nominal fee study carrels to students. This will allow you to have a quiet place to study. You'd have the same place for the entire semester or the entire year, and you could choose where it is within the library. So I would definitely recommend inquiring at your library to find this type of facility. Now, usually this is more available to graduate students, but even if you're an undergraduate student, I would definitely check this out. Attendance. In the U.S., attendance is generally taken, and absences are taken very seriously. Within the syllabus, there will be an attendance policy, and generally you will probably have 3 to 4 allotted absences per semester. You might have more, you might have less. You need to be familiar with your syllabus in this regard. But you need to also take this very seriously. If you miss more than the allotted number of courses, any of the consequences listed on the graphic included with this slide can occur. You could be withdrawn from your class. At my university, you will receive a grade called FS, which means failure stopped attending. You won't be able to play sports. You might lose your scholarship. It might become more difficult to live on campus. You need to treat attendance just like you would treat the most difficult exam in the class. You need to work hard to be in class. And finally, even if your syllabus does not have an official attendance policy, rest assured that the professor is keeping track and paying attention. So even if there's no attendance policy, I guarantee that if you miss 5 to 10 classes, the professor will notice and your grade will reflect that. So it's just a difference between many different systems of education, and the American system is very big on attendance. So just keep that in mind. Okay, so just a little bit about grading. I'm sure most of you won't have any trouble with this, but I've depicted a grading scale on the right-hand side of this slide, and what you can see is, generally speaking, how your grades will be computed. So usually there's going to be a point scale, and for each assignment you can earn a certain amount of points, and then whatever percentage of those points you earn is then transferred into a letter grade. So if you earn between 93 and 100% of the points, you will get an A. If you only earn 80% of the points, you'll generally receive a B-. Most professors will talk about this on the first day of class, and again, it will be in the syllabus. Now, overall, grading at U.S. colleges and universities can be different depending on the school. Recent research has indicated that the average grade falls somewhere around a B, maybe a little bit higher, which means that the average grade point average is something like a 3.0. But as I said, this can vary greatly between institutions, and it's not something that's really widely discussed. So if you go to a professor and ask what is the average grade at this school, they might not know, and even if they do know, they might not really want to talk about it. So the thing for you to remember is that at every institution, all grades are utilized. If you do great, you'll get an A. But if you don't try and you miss class and you don't do excellent work, it's very possible that you could get a C, a D, or an F. So finally in this section, a little bit about decorum. And what I mean here when I talk about decorum is, working with your faculty members and professors and how to address them. My advice to you is when you first encounter a professor, that you refer to them as professor or doctor, followed by their last name. This is the most formal, most professional way to address a professor, and they will respond favorably to this type of address. Now, you might find at your particular institution that a professor prefers to be addressed much more informally. This is perfectly fine. And in fact, many professors feel uncomfortable being referred to as doctor or professor. So if your professor tells you or indicates in the syllabus that they want to be called their first name or some other name, you should probably call them that. If a professor, if you feel uncomfortable doing that and you really can't bring yourself to do it, then you should schedule a meeting and talk to the professor about it. Some faculty members are very finicky about how they are addressed, and it's important that they know that you're trying to be as respectful as possible. Okay, so we're moving on now to some of the more, I would say, light information, but certainly not less important from this presentation. So just a word about packing. You need to check with your airlines about weight limits for baggage. They're strictly enforced, and depending on your airline and the type of ticket you have, you're looking at 1 or 2 free bags of somewhere between 20 and 23 kilograms, along with 1 carry-on bag. You should note that if you arrive to the airport with extra baggage, you could be charged anywhere between $100 and $300 for 1 extra bag. Security, no self-defense products, no pepper spray, no mace, pocket knives, nothing like that. If you try and take those types of items through security, the best thing that'll happen to you is that they'll take the item away from you. There's many worse things that could also occur, so don't do it. Customs. When you arrive to the United States, you'll have to go through customs. Our advice, do not bring plants. Don't bring meats, and this includes packaged or smoked meats. Absolutely no meat. Don't bring anything that's alive or living. Don't bring fruits. Don't bring vegetables. Also, if you choose to bring cigarettes or liquor, if you're old enough to do so, remember that the quantities of these items that you can bring are highly regulated, and if you bring more than your free allowance, you may be charged a hefty duty or tax. So just keep this stuff in mind while you're packing your bags. Okay, so finally, we're going to move to essentials. And this is kind of a rather long section, and we're going to talk about quite a few different things. The first thing that you need to be aware of is that basically anything you need or will want while you're in the United States is available for purchase. Whether you're in a large town, a small city, a village, wherever your university is located, you will be able to buy the things you need, either at bricks and mortar stores or on the internet. I want to alert you now to our 5th web link, which is a United States and Belarus cost of living breakdown. And I've included this in the presentation just so you can get an idea of what the cost differential might be between where you're living now and the city you'll be in the United States. It's a great tool where you can actually choose the different cities. So if you're from Minsk and you're studying in Jacksonville, Florida, you can indicate that in the form. So it's a great tool. I use it all the time myself, and I certainly use it with my students in America. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about shopping in the United States. There's lots of different types of stores, as I'm sure there are where you're from. We have discount retailers, we have department stores, we have grocery stores, we have drug stores, we have specialty stores. You know, when you're shopping, you'll have to decide for yourself what type of store fits you best. In terms of discount retailers, we're talking about Target and Walmart and stores like that. These stores generally have a little bit of everything. The quality is fairly good, not especially high, but they'll have electronics, they'll have food, they'll have clothing, they'll have personal items. So this is the kind of place you can go, kind of like a hypermarket, where you can just get a little bit of everything. Department stores, you'll find stores like this, Macy's, Nordstrom, Saks, other stores. These stores are generally clothing stores, and they're generally going to be more expensive than discount retailers, but they will have a higher quality of clothing. Grocery stores, I probably don't need to explain a lot about grocery stores. They sell food. Drug stores. A lot of international students at my university spend a lot of time shopping at drugstores, and it's been very difficult to understand why. I've tried to figure it out. My advice to you is not to do this. If you need medicine, if you need a prescription, certainly go to a drugstore. But if you're looking to buy food, if you're looking to buy beverages, personal items, they're quite a bit more expensive than the other types of stores on this list for the same items. Now, a lot of times these stores are very convenient. They might be located downtown on the main street of wherever you are, and this might influence why international students shop at them so often. But if you can find a way to get to a discount retailer or a grocery store, you will save money. Finally, a little bit about specialty stores. This type of store in the U.S. is kind of a dying breed. You might still find electronic stores, sporting goods stores. I have a photo of Dunham Sports, which is a major specialty sporting goods store. These stores will probably have the best selection. They will probably have high quality items, but they will also probably have high prices. So, you know, it's up to you to decide what you're looking for. And then finally, not listed on this list is online retailers, a hugely growing segment in the U.S. And you know, it's how many Americans shop. If you're in a small town, you should have no problem using internet online retailers and you know, having things delivered and still obtaining high quality items. So my advice to you would be, if you need to shop online, to talk to the one of the many advisors that you'll have at your university, and they'll point you to the best types of sites for that. Okay, another big issue for international students is mobile phones. First and foremost, in the United States, you will never hear anybody call this a mobile phone. It will be a cell phone. If you say mobile phone, some people may understand you, others may not. But you should get used to using the American lingo of cell phone. In America, mobile phones or cell phones are usually purchased with a 2-year contract, which subsidizes the price of the phone and allows people to buy an expensive phone for a low price. As an international student, this is going to be difficult for you to do. My experience is that this is only possible with either an American cosigner or a large deposit. So if you're not interested in doing those two things, you'll probably pay $500 to $800 for your phone. If you decide to go this way, you will then have a monthly cell phone bill on the low end of $50 and on the high end of $200, depending on whether or not you have a smartphone, an analog phone, and what kind of data package you have. My advice for students looking to purchase a mobile phone or a cell phone is to try to find a no contract alternative. T-Mobile sells SIM cards in the United States. That's a very good option. Also, large stores such as Target and Walmart sell prepaid cell phones. You probably won't be able to have a smartphone, but you will not pay very much, and you will at least have a phone with text messaging and voice. So it's kind of a tricky issue, and every student handles it differently. So evaluate the information and make the best decision for yourself. Other things to think about with cell phones: you'll be able to call anywhere in the United States for the same flat rate. There's generally no long distance. If you're in New York City and you have a friend in Los Angeles, you'll probably be able to call them as much as you want without paying long distance. You will have a certain amount of minutes associated with your cell phone, your particular plan, and whether you call in or someone is calling, whether you call out or someone is calling you, those minutes will be consumed. That's another thing that for international students that sometimes results in higher bills than they're imagining. You do not want to call internationally on a cell phone. It could be $4 or $5 a minute. Just don't do it. And then finally, no matter where you move in the United States, so if you start off at a university in Boston and then transfer to a university in Chicago, you'll probably be able to you'll definitely be able to keep your same cell phone number if you want. You'll have to decide if that's something that you're interested in doing. But I think the major takeaway from this is that the United States generally works on the cell phone network is kind of a countrywide network, and you can use your phone, you can use your calling plan throughout the entirety of that network. All right, another issue particular to international students has to do with apartment living, and I'm sure most of you are very familiar with living in apartments. So we're not really going to talk about the ins and outs of that, but what we're going to talk about now really is the legal document that you sign when you take an apartment in the United States, which is going to be called the lease. When you sign a lease, it's important to note that you are not just agreeing to pay rent for a place to live, but you're also agreeing to everything else that's written in the document. There might be house rules, which include quiet hours. You might be agreeing to pay a security deposit. You might be agreeing to not make any changes to the premises. So one of the issues that we've had in the past is students who move into an apartment and are unsatisfied with some of the cabinets or the carpet, and they want to change that. In an apartment in the United States, it's very rare that you would be allowed to make any changes of that nature to your apartment. So my advice is, if you're going to rent an apartment, before you sign the lease, to read it, first of all, and secondly, make sure you visit the apartment. Or if you really can't visit it, get really good pictures so that you know you'll be happy with what you're signing and what you're going to be getting. Along with apartment living, cable and internet is another issue for international students. A lot of them are surprised by how robust the service is in the United States in terms of cable and the amount of channels that you will get. Also, the price that it costs, it's generally fairly expensive. If you're in an apartment, you'll probably have to sign up for cable and internet independently. As an international student, you may need a security deposit that can run anywhere from $200 to $400. And you should expect a monthly bill for both services of anywhere between $100 and $200 a month. It's important to understand this when you're when you're budgeting. And also, many apartment complexes, unfortunately, only allow certain cable carriers. So you'll want to check your lease, and your lease should give you an idea of who you need to call to activate your cable and internet service. Okay, the final thing that we're going to talk about is medical issues. And I'm not really, I probably should have titled this something differently, because this really isn't about medical issues per se. But what we're talking about is basically when you get sick in the US, what to do. The main point that I want to make here is that medical care in the US is very expensive, and you want to make sure that the care that you're getting is covered by your health insurance policy. And since all of you will have US health insurance, there's no reason to seek out care that it does not cover. So how to do this? The first thing you need to do is to read your medical insurance policy and know not only what kinds of services are covered, but which doctors are covered, which pharmacies and drugstores are covered. Each policy is different. And if you go to a doctor or a pharmacy that isn't covered, you may find that you will have to pay the entire portion of the bill. So read your policy, and if your health insurance policy is provided through your university, which most of yours probably will be, there will be an administrator at the school who you can talk to about this. I would recommend you do that. This is something that causes a lot of problems, because when people get sick, they get sick quickly, and they search out the easiest alternative. What you're looking for is the best alternative. So with that, this kind of concludes the presentation portion of this little pre-departure information session. I'm open to take as many questions as you have about the items that were presented, or anything else that you might wonder about your impending journey to the United States.